Welcome into
Hello,
the. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I was going to say hello, everybody. Welcome into Indiana football postgame. Jim Coyle with you, coach as well, coming to you from Memorial Stadium. Here as Indiana takes on Old Dominion today, and kind of an auspicious start for the Hoosiers. Not exactly the start we expected to see. Indiana comes out with a 27-14 win, and if you take 2 plays away, coach, the defense played great, but unfortunately, you cannot take away 2 plays that went for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is kind of freaky. But if you take those away, they hold Old Dominion to. I just sent a tweet out right before that second run. Indiana has only given up 21 yards rushing since the first quarter, and it was like, bam, right after that. I'm like, are you kidding me? But the first game, you're going to have some issues. We saw some mistakes today, coach, on both sides of the ball, a little bit more on offense. They didn't quite seem to be in sync just yet, as Fernando Mendoza didn't target not a lot of targets to Elijah Surratt. I think he ended up with 3 on the day, but Indiana does get out with a win, the most important part of all, and they will move forward. And last year, I don't think they covered the spread in the first game against Florida International, if I recall correctly anyway. But it was probably a little more anticipation that maybe we wouldn't feel about this game the way we do, because it doesn't feel like we thought we would be leaving after this game. But partly probably because of what happened last year after coming off of that 3-9 season. Nobody really batted an eye with that win over Florida International last year, but things have got to get better. Obviously, Kurt Cignetti knows that he's not happy with how they played, but he also knows they're going to get better. This is the first game of the year.
Yeah, and you're going to see your most improvement from week 1 to week 2. But there was some disappointment, I think, that went around with, either side of the football. Defensively, you cannot give up the big plays that they did today. Even though the second one was more of a broken play than it was an actual play. The first play of the game, Indiana was just overly aggressive, and they overran their gaps. And that unfortunately led to that big 75-yard touchdown. The second one was kind of a fluke play in the sense that Joseph, I think, just pulled it on his own and snuck around Kellen Wyatt, who closed down. But I find more blame offensively than I would defensively today, because there was just no, outside of the run game, there just wasn't any continuity and balance within a lot of with what they were trying to do. And especially when they got inside the 5 and only coming away with 3 points on one drive there in the first half, and not being able to get it in from 4 straight plays from the 2-yard line. I was having flashbacks to Louisville a couple of years ago when that happened. But hey, like you said, they're going to get better from week 1 to week 2. They're not going to cancel practice on Monday. And at the end of the day, it's better to make these corrections when you have a W in the column instead of an L. And that's the thing that everyone has to keep in mind. You take winning, whether it's by 50 or by 2, it's a win, and it doesn't matter what it ultimately looks like. It's your 1-0 heading into week 2.
Yeah, that first quarter, not only did they give up that 75-yard run, first play of the game, you're like, wait, what? What the hell just happened there? But then Indiana, they answer. They come right back down. They get down. They're on the goal line. And what did they do all of last year? They get into the red zone. They score. Mm-hmm. They did not. They came away empty. As a matter of fact, they had 2 goose eggs from the red zone on this day. As a matter of fact, I wonder how many plays of that length did Indiana give up all of last season? I don't remember that many. Notre Dame game was a big one, but that was at the end of the year. But I'm trying to remember big plays like that, man.
The only one that defense really gave away last year that resulted in a score was probably the Notre Dame game of significant yardage. You could count Hemby, I guess, in that one as well, because his run against Maryland last year was about 45-yard touchdown run where he kind of broke through the line of scrimmage and scored. But, the defense has always been pretty good with not giving up the big chunk plays. And there after that first one, they pretty much buckled down and they were back to what you would accustomed to seeing from an Indiana defense. And that was, the good part. This, in all honesty with everything, and you just pointed out there about, Indiana's offense inside the 20 last year was scoring 6 points about 85 to 90% of the time. And that way, right now, it's a let me hold on here, Jimmy. But
post-game call-in show, baby. Post-game call-in. You're on the air. You're on the air, caller. And speaking of Roman Hemby, why you grabbed that? Luckily, he's on Indiana's squad this year because he led this team in rushing, goes over 100 yards on the day. That has to make Curt Cignetti very, very happy because for two reasons. Number one, you got a guy that goes over 100 yards. Number two, that shows your offensive line is doing the things that you want them to do. Not a lot of problems with the offensive line today. Not a lot of holding calls. The blocking was good. So it seemed like that everything went well from that. Of course, you have to go back and coaches have to watch the film. They have to grade it out to see who did what. But if you're just looking at the numbers, Kalen Black, I don't know what he finished with either. I can't. I have to put my spectacles on so I can read all that. But I know that Kalen Black also had a big day. He was, when I last looked, at almost at 80 yards rushing. And then Beebe came in throughout the third quarter, and he was running the ball a lot. So it shows you they've got three guys that are really good at running that ball.
Hold on there, Fulton.
Oh, my. Fulton's on with us already.
Yeah, give me a second here, Jimmy. But you can see there with the statistic from today, and you had mentioned it earlier, Indiana had 309 yards rushing. And that
when's the last time they had that?
I couldn't even tell you. The offensive line as a whole was pretty darn good all the way around with this. And I thought they played significantly better than I've seen him play. Khalil Benson, I thought, looked really good. I also saw that, Coogan made a huge difference at the point of attack, and there was just a lot of positives there with the offensive line because of what they were able to do, even in pass protection. So it's one of those things that overall you got to feel pretty confident of what you saw today. And let me see if I can get Colton in here right now. Colton, can you hear us?
Dude, our first call-in portion of the show.
Yep.
So what's Fulton's comments? What you got to say, Fulton? What'd you think of the game, man?
Well, I'm happy for the IU football tonight, and I was doing on my YouTube stream today. And they were pretty good. I thought the team was excellent, and they made a lot of touchdowns and a lot of passes. And my biggest thing is that they got to keep on winning. They got to keep on doing their best, go to the season, the football season, and stuff like that.
Well, that's a great comments, Fulton. We appreciate you calling in, and appreciate your comments, buddy.
I got my audition. Yeah, I got my audition tomorrow afternoon at 3:30.
Well, good luck with that, brother. We hope you do better than the offense did here today. But thank you for reaching out to us, and we appreciate your comments. And for those rest of you, if you'd like to call in, Coach, give them the number.
Yeah, we got it there on the screen for those that are watching via the social medias. But if you're listening, just because you're driving, it's 260-676-0450. 260-676-0450.
There you go. So, and it's next week. Now, ironically, next week, Indiana plays Kennesaw State. Do you know who the quarterback for Kennesaw State is? Rhetorical, I know you do. A familiar face to Hoosier fans. And that's something Indiana's got to work on because he's a running quarterback, Mr. Dexter Williams, who won a game for Indiana a few years ago against Michigan State, mainly with his legs. If I recall correctly, he threw like 2 passes in that entire
Yeah.
game, and one of them was maybe a 2-point conversion or something at the end.
Yeah, it was a big game for him.
But we've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of former Indiana quarterbacks this weekend. Watch Cincinnati play Nebraska. There you go, another former Indiana quarterback playing. And then Taven Jackson got the winning touchdown pass for Central Florida. I forget who they were playing, but big weekend for him. He didn't start the game, but he ended that game. So getting off subject a little bit there, but just ironic the quarterback situation with Indiana that they're going to see one of their own next week. A little irony, but I guess it's going to be like Maryland. My gosh, when they face if they play Wisconsin, which I don't know that they do, their quarterback is now at Wisconsin. Their running back is at Indiana. So Maryland is not going to enjoy seeing those faces again. But Roman Hemby, a standout for the Hoosiers today, one of probably the biggest bright spots because he got all of his yards early. He had 100 yards, or he was at 99 early, sometime in the third quarter. I don't remember exactly when that was, but a great day for him running the football.
No, he was every bit that I thought, and most people would have thought he was, in terms of his ability to run the football effectively as he was today. And matter of fact, outside of BB's one turnover, they all three ran well. I mean, you saw Black and how physical he can be at the point of attack, and he has some quicks where he bounced a couple out to the outside on the big one run they had in the first half. And again, you come away from this running game from today, you have to give it an A all the way around because you had great running, great blocking at the point of attack by all the O-line, and the running backs, they ran hard and they, got the extra yardage when they needed to. It's hard to run the ball when you're inside the 5 and you got 10 bodies in the box. It's a difficult thing to do. And when Indiana did score, they got into a formation, made Old Dominion commit to their 10-man box defense, and then that's the one that Mendoza pulled and went around the left edge for a touchdown, and that's the type of thing that you have to have there. But they were trying to beat their head on the door a couple times there that I just don't think they were going to have a chance because there was too many unblocked players, and that's one thing they're going to have to work on because you can't put all the energy getting the ball down there and not getting any points whatsoever.
Yeah, well, the line seemed to be opening a bunch of holes today, and Kurt Signetti acknowledged that in the post-game presser with the success of Roman Hemby and Kalen Black and BB today. The one thing they didn't do is dominate near the goal line. They weren't able to just shove Old Dominion into the end zone, and that's something that is going to be in the back of your mind later when you get down the road, especially against Illinois, who has the second most starts among offensive linemen in the country, I believe. And Illinois looked pretty damn good last night when I was watching them play. I don't know what the final score was, but I think they had over 40 points that last I saw. But they were just looking. It wasn't that they were looking like an NFL team, but they were looking consistent. They were looking good. They weren't making a lot of mistakes. They were hitting the passes, hitting their spreading it around. Why? And it's a little curious as to maybe why Elijah Sarab did not get the targets he got today. I don't know if that was with purpose. Sometimes you're not wanting to show a whole lot, but I don't know that that's really an acceptable answer in this situation.
Yeah, and Indiana had 335 yards against Western a year ago, that was a god awful team that came into Bloomington last year. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you get into these games and you got to be sufficient when you get a chance to put points on the board. And today was just one of those days that there was just a lot of, like you said, there was some things that were out of sync. The thing with Mendoza, the targeting of Surratt, which I was shaking my head in the first half. I'm like, he hasn't even touched the ball, and I thought maybe he was out, maybe he was a late, scratch because he wasn't even even in the picture on the TV, watching it from afar. But that can't happen. You gotta have things that you can get the ball to that kid in his hands because he can make plays. And the other thing is we didn't have any back shoulder throws today. Something that Indiana was very proficient at a year ago, and that's something that they're going to have to work on with Mendoza. That was not something in his repertoire at Cal. And they're going to have to, really work on him getting the ball elevated in the air when there's a deep throw. His best one was the one that was dropped. That should have been a touchdown.
That one was wide open. Yeah, you cannot drop those.
No, but he also missed a couple that should have been touchdowns by overthrowing guys too, because he didn't get enough air under him. So there's plenty to work on. That's for sure. And like I said, it's better to work on it from a W than a loss.
Yeah, and the throwing game we've already touched on the fact that it didn't look like it was greatly in sync, but how much of the passing game were they really trying to use today, I wonder?
Well, like any game, I think they're, want to have as much balance as humanly possible in a game like today. And, I guess for the most part, they did to a degree. But when you're pounding the rock like they were and getting an average of, 5-6 yards a carry, it's kind of hard to give up the fact that you can run the ball effectively, but they still had 57 rushing attempts, and they threw the ball 32 times on the day. And Mendoza was 18 of 31. He had no interceptions, no touchdowns, 193 yards, and he completed 58% of his passes. So it was just an average day for him.
Very pedestrian, as I called it earlier.
Yeah. He'll get better, but they'll have to get back to doing some things with the quick game, the quick screens. Not many RPOs today, I didn't think. And that may have been because of what Old Dominion plays and how they play up in your face more than they do that they'll see. But, those are some of the things last year that Indiana was able to hang their hat on, and we didn't see much of that today.
Next week, they move on to Kennesaw State, like we said, who gave Wake Forest all they wanted. That was a really good game, as a matter of fact, for a team that doesn't have, they don't have a lot of balance. You talk about balance in the offense. Well, you've got a quarterback who doesn't throw the ball a lot. So that's going to be a situation where Indiana's going to have to focus on him next week. Kind of like they probably could have focused on the runners today a little bit. They missed those two big plays, but those can come up to bite you. And then we had the turnover, and it's like, oh man, you don't want those things kind of piling up.
No, and that was the only one they had, was BB's one that he put on the turf, and that was unfortunate for the kid. But I thought he rebounded and came back strong there in the second half when he got back into the swing of the rotation. He ended up with 73 yards on the day, and you had three backs within 100 yards by 27 yards, away for him being the 73 yards on the day. But again, offensive line, pass pro, and the effectiveness of running the ball was A today. There's no question about it. The passing game was probably a C at best when it comes to what you would looking for out of this, with group of receivers and Mendoza and such. So those are the areas they got to get better at. And at the worst, defensively, you can't give up those big plays. You just cannot give up big plays like they did today and put yourself behind the eight ball right off the start. And hey, we got punched in the nose today, Jimmy. We found out what they could do, because after that first touchdown, I think they rattled off 27 straight points before Old Dominion scored again. So at some point too, you got to look at it from the response that the kids gave after that, going down 7-0.
It was akin to last year's game up in East Lansing against Michigan State. They trail for the first time all season. They go down 10-0, as a matter of fact, before running off 47 straight points in a game they would win 47-10. So it's not like this team that doesn't have a lot of weapons. I am a little surprised that the passing game did not have to come out and be an A+ today. But the fact that it's less than a B, that's a little, I don't want to say disconcerting, but it gets you to think because you've got a new quarterback. The line didn't have anything to do with that really, and these guys have been throwing together all months and months. So you're finally facing somebody that's not your own teammates. Now that's different, and it's somebody who is really trying to stop you. So I don't know if it was just the defensive game plan that Old Dominion was able to put out there. I don't know that they did a lot to alter things, because I think it was just timing and some overthrows, some drops. It was more Indiana inflicting injury upon themselves than Old Dominion, it looked like to me, but I've got to go back and rewatch this game as well.
Well, Indiana had only 3 passes over 20 yards today, which is not as much as they would have liked to, because
But how many times did they really go deep? I mean, I know that the pass that Omar Cooper dropped was considered a deep pass, but it wasn't like a 50-yard bomb. It was just a wide open across the middle. But I don't know that they're going to. Maybe next week they'll try that, but
Cooper had the other one that he dropped, but he also caught the one that he ended up making a nice play on that got interference on. That was like a 46-yard throw. And then EJ and Surratt both end up having 22 at the longest for them in today's games. But you look at this day, I mean, EJ Williams had 8 targets. They say Surratt had 5. I doubt that. I think that may be wrong. If he had 4, maybe 4. But Cooper
had 3 I know of, and that came late. Yeah. So those other 2 would have been even later in the contest, after I was probably downstairs onto the field already.
Yeah. And then they had 4 for Nowitzki. And
Nowitzki getting some time. I noticed that. I'm like, Nowitzki making his presence known.
Well, he gives them the best of both worlds, because he's a good blocking tight end, and then he's also learning to catch the football more effectively, and he's a hard worker. Now, Stays has got to be a guy that they can rely on, because he's another big body that you get down in that red zone that can go up and bang and stuff like that, just like they have with EJ. And that's the one thing I would say from the passing game today is I think EJ Williams had one of his best games as an Indiana Hoosier in the limited number of plays that he's played, because he finally looked like he could look in terms of running routes and not getting hurt doing so. So if you're looking at a bright spot, that one right there was, because he's got to be another guy that they got to rely on for those big plays down the field, because he's 6'2", 6'3", and he can make those contested those contested catches down the field. So again, I think there were some things there, like you said, that they need to evaluate. One is, why wasn't Surratt in the mix more? Was it because of coverage? Was it because that they weren't targeting purposefully today? Or was it the fact is, hey, we forgot to, and
kind of hard to forget an All-American standing out there.
Well, you say that, but there are some times when you're just calling a game, you're calling passes where every receiver kind of quote unquote equally could catch the football. And for one reason or the other, it's not going that way. And they finally were intentional with it when they threw the slant to him. And that's the thing that they got to make sure they do consistently. And the RPO game, again, I think will also help them as they go on into next week with a different type of defense.
Well, and usually there's a lot of things you learn, mainly from your own mistakes that you learn from out of this first game. From the coach's jargon, when's the most improvement usually come?
Week 2. From week 1 to week 2 is the biggest jump.
So we'll see if that is the case. Next week, as Indiana will host Kennesaw State, a team that, like I said, we're going to see a lot of running against that team. It's going to be a truer test on this newer defensive line. A lot of replacements. James Carpenter gone, C.J. West gone, Linnell Carr Jr. gone. So a lot of replacements. How are they doing? Like I said, I don't really know today. I've got to go home and rewatch this thing. There's too much that goes on when it happens live, but they're going to get a test next week for certain.
Yes, no question. And defensively, from my perspective, I thought Isaiah Jones came in and played a very good ball game, making several different plays. And I thought that was a positive from the linebacker spot. And then as the game kept going today, you started noticing Hosa Wheeler and some of the other guys inside there that were starting to get the push along the offensive line and, causing some, traffic in front of the Joseph kid who ended up throwing 3 picks today. And that's all because a lot of it was pressure. And so there were some things there defensively that were definitely great to see outside of the 2 biggies, but still only yielding 2 touchdowns on the day, defensively speaking. Boy,
not only that, I think did they take a snap on the Indiana side of the 50-yard, on the Indiana side of the field? I don't know that they did, because both of their touchdowns were 75, 78 yards. So neither of those, they didn't score again, and they did not attempt a field goal. So they weren't in scoring range.
Right.
I'm not sure they took a snap on the Indiana side of the field today. That is going to be a very, very unique situation, that you win a game 27-14 and don't allow a snap on your end of the field.
No question. And the other thing that I will say today is, and this is something I pointed out Thursday during the tailgate, they needed to set up a score or score on special teams today. They got that score from Brady on the 90-yard touchdown run, which was
how about that thing? Was that spectacular?
A pivotal, it ended up quote unquote being a pivotal score in the grand scheme of things.
2 things stood out to me about that. One was the initial key block, that all it was, I forget who it was, but he turned his back to the defender and just picked them. That's using your head there. You can't get called for your illegal hands in the back. You can't get called for an illegal block if you've got your back to them. I think he picked off 2 players that way, as a matter of fact. But then Brady, he once he found that little seam going up the right sideline, he paused and waited for his blockers to open another hole, and then boom, he picked it and he ran. That was a great run back.
No question. And you saw his type of speed and what he gives Indiana back there. And, again, when you get a score off of special teams, it's almost like you're getting 2, because it's a phase of the game that if you can win that phase of the game each and every week of the year, your chances go up exponentially in terms of giving a chance to win. And those are so big, especially early in the year, because they have a tendency to be a very decisive factor in a ball game. And in today's game, it was, because of the nip and tuck that it was there in the first half of the ball game. So big shout out to that and the special teams and their performance today all the way around. And that's what they're going to have to continue to do, and give this team a more rounded approach to each and every week. And like we said, we're going to see SIG is not going to allow offensively to happen today on a consistent basis when it comes to being down there and not getting points. He won't stand for it. Watching him on the sideline today, I thought he was going to blow up, when they weren't getting in there, and I didn't hear his presser, but I would assume that he wasn't all too happy with that part of the game.
He was not nearly. It was a little surprising. He seemed to be now. Maybe he's getting better at a public face than he has been, but he didn't seem to be that perturbed. He knows that they have things they have to work on. He's not happy with how they played. Mm-hmm. He knows that there's things that have to be fixed. He knows there are things that have to be continued to make better, and that's what they're going to go do. But he knows that teams make their greatest gains between weeks 1 and week 2. You've got to get that first game under your belt. It's kind of like needing someone to pick at you, an outside eyes to pick at you to find some things that maybe you're not seeing. So and they've got that under the belt, but they'll agree with you. he's not going to stand for that. He's got the standard that they have to play up to. A lot of expectations on this team. He's said a lot of things, and so he's got to make sure his team comes out and performs. And again, first game, you're not going to make a whole bunch over it. You got a lot of positives out of it. You had 3 interceptions on the day. Yeah. You had a special teams run back for a touchdown of 91 yards. That has to be one of the longest punt returns in IU history. I mean, I've got to go get my record book out, but I'm like, okay, there's only 9 yards that it could be better than that, unless somebody's pulling one out of the back of the end zone, which that doesn't happen. So that's just a unique thing that happened. So a lot of positives. The running game was positive, and the passing game, it was negative. It was just neutral. It just seemed like, it was, could have done a lot more things better.
Yeah, here's the thing that, and this goes with the expectational aspect, because we've seen a team like Indiana play better than they did today, and that's the beauty of it. They didn't play their best, perhaps, today, but they still won by 2 scores. And the fact of the matter is, they had 500 yards of rushing, over 300 yards, or 500 yards total offense, 300 yards rushing. They held the ball for 41 minutes today to Old Dominion's 18. They were a +2 in the turnover margin, and they were 10 of 17 on 3rd downs, and Old Dominion was 4 of 10. So in the grand scheme of things, when you look at statistical and take the score away, you can see that they thoroughly dominated Old Dominion, and they did, outside of the 2 big runs that just punch you on the nose that make you go, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? So you can't lose sight of that fact at all. We know that this team can play better. We've seen a team like Indiana last year play better, but that's not always going to be the case. And when you can win games that you don't necessarily play your best, that's good. That's a positive, because that like we said earlier, that ability is only going to get higher and higher for them to attain to, and we know they can do it.
Absolutely. Make sure we'll get the number out next week, so make sure everyone knows that you can actually call in now this year. So we'll have that added to it, and we'll keep bringing you up to date. We'll go in this week on Indiana Sports Beat, of course, and with the Hoosier Tailgate with Coach. We'll have previews of Kennesaw State and everything that's coming up. We'll further review of this. We'll look more into what happened in this game after we both get to go back and watch it again. So lots more coming up. A whole season ahead of us, baby. The whole season is yet to come. We've got 11 more games of the regular season, but it is here. And what an incredibly beautiful day it was. And most of the time there was not a cloud in the sky. It was just blue skies, and a pretty good crowd for, I guarantee it's the biggest first game crowd of the year I've ever seen here, save for Ohio State a few years ago, I think, on was that a Thursday game when the Buckeyes came in here and College Game Day was here. But other than that, it's usually not much. It was a pretty good crowd here today. So we'll look forward to that. Coach, I'll let you take them home. If you want to keep on talking, you can, but I'm going to get out of the stadium, baby.
Well, you have a safe and happy holiday here, as to everyone else out there listening or watching on either of the social media networks. Now, listen, the Monday's a day of labor. That's why they call it Labor Day. And the Hoosier Tailgate will be on Monday night at 7:30. So
you go, Daddy. You go.
No off days for the coach, because it's a day of labor. But for Jim
I am not working on Monday.
For Jimmy Coyle, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. We'll see you guys on the radio.